Testing, 1, 2. Yeah. 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, deep breathing. So most of the change is going to happen in your transitions, because the transitions have to have structure and has to have, a synchronization that allows the movement to work. So, one of the things is when we're here, we want to drive the movement from the legs and the body. So let's try this. Ready? Okay, we're going to actually have another mirror soon. Go. Okay, uppercut, remove, take a step, and then twist the feet. So look at your feet. They shouldn't be straight. The northern forms are straight. They should be twisted slightly, still almost parallel, and then turn. Okay, now check your hand. Make sure the wrist is not like that. Again, ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So when the hand comes back, but with a twist. Because if you notice, when we're here, push, then if we were reversing the movement, this would do almost a back fist and then press down. Reversing it would be that. Reversing it would be that. So your body has to kind of reverse, like it was like taking the video and then going to reverse image. So the movement should be, just like in say, carry tiger to the mountain, your feet go like this, and then you would turn back and you would do this. So your feet would do this, this, and this, because there's that order. So when we're finished punching, we have to shift here first, set up the leg, and then drop. So we're here, right? Punch, 1, 2, 3. 3. Okay, so we don't have to actually change the body form. When we're here, we still should be pretty vertical in the spine. So we don't want to distort the body. So if the spine is still straight in the vertical sense, you just maybe sink a little bit on this side. Okay, so that just to give you the structure. Now this hand is coming to here. So we're here, 1, 2. Now this hand is a high block. So if you were to reset and turn toward the mirror, it should still be the same relationship. Not in the center, slightly to the side, because we're here. So this hand and this hand comes here, but where it ends up is like that diagonal. See? So there is, an alignment to your body form. So that's what makes the difference in your posture. Now, when we're here, let's go into this position. So how do we set up the cross hand position? Let's just try that. Ready? Let's do that from here. The next cross hand position would be this, right? So let's try that. Go. 1. Yeah. 2. Yeah. So when we're here, this hand comes on top. You drop, you turn. So when you turn, this elbow has to lead. So you get a 90 degree here. And then when you shift back, you follow the hand and you end up there. Now look at your front hand. It should be like that, yeah. So let's try that again. Ready? From here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at the hand, follow the hand. You actually, all you have to do is turn your torso. If you put too much effort in this, then this might not turn because your shoulder ended up tensing. So you have to let your shoulder relax and just drive from the body. And then your arm is only the extension of that. So ready, turn, go. Yeah. Okay, again. Ready, go. Yeah, so your backhand is separating. But it finishes in the lean. You see, so there's a bit of timing there. So there's equal opposite and splitting. It's almost like diagonal flying in Tai Chi. In Tai Chi we split. Here we split. So you have to drive it from your leg. So you're here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So your body will do everything. Again, ready? So there's two positions. The first position, you're here. 1, 2. Now you see the cross hand position is your typical cross hand position. Its arms are parallel to the floor. So that's the position you've learned over time, whether it's here or here, right? When you turn to here, that's your 90 degree. This hand actually just relaxes. And then when you turn, you dip into this side and then extend off of here. You see, so the leg work is what helps to drive that. So when we're here, cross hand position. This is cross hand, this is cross hand, this is cross hand. So, you know, the different versions of the cross hand. That's just meeting in your center line. So meeting in the center line. Just for cutting hand, it does that. For drunken fist, it does that. So in full hawk, the same thing happens, right? The thing is, in full hawk, you're here, then you drop. So that's the cross hand position. Then when you turn, there's your lean. Here's your strike. So fundamentally, go all the way back to the first form. That position was there, just that we didn't pay attention to it, maybe didn't think it was important. When you get to full hawk, that's already ingrained in your body. You already know that. So when we did, what I did was I fell. That's called dropping, turn, strike. And then it happens again. And there's your opposite side. And then there's that. So that's in full hawk. So you see, drunken fist is consistent throughout all the forms that you do. So let's just try that again from here. 1. Okay, so when we put this hand on top, right, that's, even though you're crossing the hand, it's covering. There's no difference between this and this, right? So this is also cross hand, right, when you do this. So you see how fundamentals is really body setups, and those body setups are where you start from one position to go to the next position. So the better those setups are, the better your execution is going to be. But if the setup isn't clear to you, then what ends up happening, it's kind of like that. But this is very specific. Whether it's here, it's the same position. In Tai Chi, we're on the center, and then we would do this, see? So it's just knowing your center, that center line. So when you cross, for its cutting hand, or lifting, when you lift, that's 45 degrees. Right? When you open it, it's 45 degrees. So you're doing, say, the breathing in the 5 elements or 5 images, you cross your hand and your hand. So when you cross and you rotate and you pivot, this is the important point, the sun eye. The part that maneuvers is in the shoulders. Your shoulders turn. And then you have to adjust to find the angular position. So if your arms are like this, 45, all you do is that. It's already there. Why? Because the elbow dictates the direction of your movement. So if you're at 45 here, it's going to be 45 there. Right? If you have 45 here, then you'll have your 45 position for this. See, so these are just, it's called muscle memory, but it's really joint angle position. So every time you set up a position, over time, your body starts to recognize it. That's how we learn. It's called body intelligence in some way, but that's what you're doing. It's getting more astute, but it only knows based on what you've told it, and then what it learns from is experience. So when you go to a position frequently and often, right, then it starts to dial in. It just starts to know. If you're fixing it, but if it goes there, so you say, well, if you've been doing it wrong for a long time, it becomes somewhat of a habit. But if you do it and there's a habit, then you would know that if it's corrected to this, then this one was not good, this one is better. And then you have to fix it, and eventually that becomes muscle memory. So you have to unlearn it a bit, but knowing it in one position, you're able to adapt to the next position. But if you don't know any of that, then it's confused. Your brain's confused. So just going back to those basics, that's what it is. Like what Paul's doing is this, right? Let's hold the ball. But that's a cross hand position of you. What makes it cross? You close the chest by rounding the back. So when you open the chest, because the back expands, then the hands move. Okay, and this goes like this, and goes like this. So that's opening and closing. But at the same time, if you were doing Gung Ji Kun, when you close, then really it's not the hands doing this. In the beginning it is, because that's all the body knows. But later on, when your body becomes pliable, flexible, and knows that it moves, and movement is a motor skill. And your body can't know the motor skill unless you actually tell it to do it. And telling it to do it is feeding it the information that we're doing. And then your brain will figure out that's the the benefit of doing these type of things. Because on a neurological basis, it's actually working to figure it out. And you really will wire your body to do the movements. And once it's wired, then it becomes muscle sequential memoried. And then it just builds off of that. So there's tremendous benefit, when they say mind-body exercise. It's not just, when we do this, just the physical side of movement. It's really the physical side of learning. So that side of it really alters, the brain, because it morphs by learning. And you learn it through movement. Movement is how you rewire. Just using your brain doesn't actually rewire your body, because everybody thinks, but why is the people uncoordinated? It's because it doesn't teach your body anything. So movement is what teaches you how to create that. So that improves your brain. But at the same time, that same apparatus that you use to figure out what goes on in the body and movement is also used to figure out other things. So you're actually building, and you just, so it's pretty amazing. It's complex in a sense, but people don't always think along these lines. So this is closing, opening, closing. This is opening but pulling back. 1, 2. So this is in the front. This takes you toward the back. This takes you over the top and down. This takes you up, out, and then down. Now, we could do this trying to create lots of power, but then it becomes only arm. But if you build the body movement and direct the motion, then what ends up happening is that you have much more refined movement, but you can capitalize on gravity, because gravity is the force acting. So sinking, not conflicting with lifting and gravity, because you want to relax and let your body feel that. And it feels, and eventually it just drops. It free falls, and that's power from free fall and directing the movement. You don't really need a lot of physical strength. But when you're first learning, it's a physical strength, then it's refined. Then it becomes integration, and it becomes an intrinsic motion, because that's driven not only from the external, but intrinsic is actually tied to the internal. So that's the corner back fist. Now when we're here and we draw, when the hand goes across, your hand has to be here. Because here again, this is separating. So everything in the first form is separating, splitting, and removing. So when I remove here, it doesn't work unless I turn my body. But look, the turning of the body is efficiency of movement. So when I turn my body, I'm loading my waist and my spine like it's a spring. Now when I unload that spring by triggering, boom, it comes like that. Elbow. 1, 2. 1, 2. Now your elbow, once you load it, it's relaxed and it's folded. So if you look at the angle, it's pretty closed here, right? So you have to load it up. So the only thing you're concerned with is getting it around till it's here. See the point? That's optimum distance. Because once you get past that point, it starts to get shorter, right? What? Wrist has to be flat. It's just a line, yeah. You're focusing here, but if this is doing this, then you don't have it here. Because in order for your elbow to fold without tension, this can't be bent like this. And it can't be overbent like that. Because if this does this, then the forearm is pulling it. If this does this, the top of the forearm is pulling it. So it doesn't allow the elbow to fold correctly. It has to be relaxed and allow this to be natural. So this, say this is neutral, and this is either right up, top, or bottom. So the fact that this is level, then you're here. Then all you have to be concerned with is driving your body to here. So this hand stays, all this hand does is this, and you bring the elbow to it. Now there's the optimum position. You don't go beyond this. Because once you go beyond that, then you're reaching. So to compensate, if you were to go beyond that, then you have to go down. Same idea as when you go out, you have to, because then you start to reach, you have to change. So I'm here. Then it starts to go down. Once you go down, is no longer conflict in movement, because gravity comes into play, and all you do is sink and release the power here, right? So all you're doing is this, just like in Ying one. That's all you're doing. Boom. It doesn't take this. It's here. So it's just the turning of your wrist. So it turns like that. You see the hand flicking like that? Boom. If you go like this, the energy already reached the outside, and it just finished. If you do this, it doesn't finish because it doesn't release. So when I'm here, and I go like this, that's that. If I'm here, if I want to go beyond here, you have to start to dip like this. And then you're not reaching because it's supported by this. If I don't drop, then I have no support because you don't have a truss on that side. Yeah, again, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, a little bit low, right there. See, so the elbow had to be lower. See, if it goes lower, that means your elbow straighten more. it stays like that. So there's your hoop. And this does bend a little bit. Then now your wrist is like this. Now there's more twist on the top. See? So because your hand has a width to it, strength can be on this side or this side, or in the middle, or up, depending on where you're directing the movement. Like when you turn like this, the strength comes like this. When you turn like this, the strength is opening. And then when you turn like this, the movement is closing. So how you define those movements is through the manipulation of those appendages, your digits, changes what happens in the forearm. Because what controls the fingers are the muscles in the forearm. They're tied to the tendons. But those tendons are 5 separate ones, and they work individually. But when an unskilled person does it, those are working together. There's no separation. But when you're doing it like this, there's a sequence. It's timed differently. So that manipulation is really still in the forearms. So what's controlling here is controlling your forearm. So if your forearm's excessively tight, then you can't fold your hand. You can't pull the wrist back. If it's excessively tight here, you can't fold it this way. There's a limit, but you have to control that. So between the top and the bottom of your forearm does that, and then there's some twisting. The twisting has to do when the 2 bones turn over and turn over. So when they turn over, it's actually part of your fingers. So when you're doing Bung Bu Kun, when you're doing any of these, there is something that's generated through the forearm. That cycling doesn't allow your forearm to be completely rigid. So that's what, something that we have to be aware of. It doesn't happen immediately until you practice it a little bit, and then you know that it changes. Even making a back fist, you don't have a tight fist until you finish the movement, and then you execute. So in between, it's not completely tight. Yeah, and then finish, but then not just finish in the hand, finish in the elbow. See, because as the elbow sinks and the forearm starts to firm up, you can finish the movement like that. So so everything is more cycling. It's cyclic. It's sequential, not just one rigid movement that just goes boom, boom. It's driving like that. So that's a back fist. So after we do the high kick, okay, then the trapping hand. You should be rolling like this. You have to roll from the shoulder. This shoulder cups. But this cups only when this turns. So that's the same action as here. But it's a different stance. But the upper body does exactly the same thing. So it's really a variation of stance. If you're Lo Ga Kun, right, the second form, it's the same action from the waist up. Leaning stance. Gung Ji Kun, fourth form. Leaning stance, first form. Same trapping hand. There's no difference. So that's what we have to distinguish as we progress, because it comes into a common category of movement. That's the fundamental. We can't define the fundamental as an action, then we have to work it as a unit. And you work a unit over and over again, just like an artist does. You draw over and over again the same picture or the same image to get it to be, to look what it's supposed to look like. And then if you have a theme, or if you have a sort of a signature, like a Mickey Mouse, it always looks like Mickey Mouse. Or not like Mickey Mouse and Pegrit once in a while. So, you know what I mean? So you're here, trap, right? We step, trap, same motion. So this trapping here is called Bong Siu. Bong Siu is trapping or tying. So you should try to do So you just roll the forearm, and this hand is here. And you roll. Remember we talked about the hoop, so you're here. Now you bend your knees, sink down. Yeah. So this is here. And the other hand. Yeah. So those hands always go together as a unit. Now they're in the same plane. You have a circle here, and you have a circle here. If you do your trapping hands, if you look in the mirror, and it's like this, it's off. If it's like this, it's off. So sometimes I'll say this. So this is reaching. This is already exposed, so it should be here, in line with your ribs or the side of your body. Just consider your body as the front, the back, and the sides. What turns is your torso, 45 degrees, 45 degrees. The rest of it is, just setting up your body for that. So the 45-degree image is very important. When you're doing second form, when we step up and chun, right? This is chun, right? So this is on your center line and your twisted stance. When you're here, boom. This turns 45 degrees, and this is about where the sternum is. But it looks lower because you're in your stance and you're twisted. But it looks lower also because you're slightly dipping on this side, on the same side of your punching, because you're working with gravity and you went down. So when you go down, working with gravity, you release this, the ribs, you release those intercostal muscles, kind of let it go, and then it'll sink. Because what doesn't allow it to sink is tension on the other side of your body or in your back. So your body's always working with gravity for balance, because what does gravity do? It works with your body and weight. If you didn't have any weight, it wouldn't work. But so you're working with, so all you're doing, so if your spine is just a vertical axle and your body is just twisting, it just really sways from side to side. But it's swaying because this is opening and closing. That's why we do the side bends. We do side bends not as a calisthenic. We do side bends as a mechanism to develop the the relationship to the two sides. So, because our body has two hemispheres, and it works as a relationship as we build the idea of yin and yang. So if I drop this way, is it because I'm pulling, or is it free fall? But if I drop this way, then this side has to yield. Or if I want to put effort into this, like when I'm throwing the punch, then I start to pull on this side. So pulling and gravity, you initiate it and then let gravity be part of that, and then you create the movement. But if you try to do it like this, using a physical force here, then the body doesn't respond correctly. So you have to get your body to understand how movement is generated, and then it starts to figure it out. Yeah. So this was actually like this. And the reason why it's a little difficult, and it happens in this corner, is because this hand is coming like this hand is coming like this, and one's longer than the other one. So the tendency is people want to do this, but actually you're turning, so it ends up short if you want them on the same line. And the reason why you want them on the same line is because if you were to strike your opponent, you can't strike this far and then hit with this side. It has to be the same because you're moving in, and then with this one has to come over the top. So that's part of body form, and then this hand is like that. Yeah. So this one's straight like that. So this is the same as this, right? Same arc that goes through. So we learned these things from day one when you first came to class. But we didn't really understand that, and we didn't talk about it like that because you're learning to do a warm-up. But the warm-up is really training in fundamentals. So, anything that we do that's kind of a drill-like thing is actually developing, on that real basic level, whether it's this or this, that's really building, additional information here for the body to start to recognize. When we do this, it's really to free up the elbow. When you free up the elbow, then when we do this, then your body will have more of a relaxed shoulder, where the shoulder won't be in conflict, throwing the punch, trying to get this here, and then this doesn't sink because it's holding it there. So, yeah, so we do that in the Yehimon class. But it's sink the elbow, relax the shoulder. That's what the idea is. Sink the elbow, relax the shoulder. Everybody thinks it's this, and that's what it is. But this is also sink the elbow, relax the shoulder. Because when you're here, and you go up, and you go down, and you go like this, you have to sink the elbow, relax the shoulder. That's in Gung Kuen. So up and down. You can't leave the principle of vertical to horizontal and back to vertical. It's in everything. So every transition, because once you go like this, you open. You have to close it. Once you close it, you either have the option of this, or you have to opening it and then coming back. So between this, and this are the directions of your movement, right? Right, left, and center. Yeah. When you're here, sink. When you're here, sink. See? So it's always that. But we didn't pay attention to what vertical and horizontal is when we were first learning, because it's not really figured out because there's the shoulders. So we do a high block, and if it's stiff, then you don't have vertical to horizontal. If you go from horizontal to vertical, you have to pass through center, and then you come back to here. So if you're doing your Tai Chi, or you're doing anything else, you have to pass through that. So here, and then here, and here, second form. Here is in Gung Kuen, right? So when we're in the elbow, here, horizontal, the high block, the crescent kick, right? And then you trap. Here, the back fist, remove, and punch. So that's, and then punch a little higher, yeah. But the wrist, yeah, a little bit, yeah. You don't want the wrist to do that because the tension here. So it's a lot of little things. Forms are forms. Most of us have memorized them pretty well. It's kind of sequentially embodied, but the transitions need to be understood a little more. So, any questions? I mean, we only didn't even get through the first form. Okay, so after the kick, we're here, palm. Now, if you get this palm, then you should have this palm in second form. You have this palm in fourth form. You have this palm in third form. So, that's your standard palm. 1, 2. Now, this is cutting, but you didn't pull back yet. So, cutting hand is really this and this. There's 2 dimension and a change in the plane of movement. So, this is horizontal and vertical. This is back and forth. So when I go like this and go like this, the back and forth becomes that. The reason why you go back and forth, because you're training your body to work the relationship between right and left. But the relationship between right and left, when that happens, it becomes, when you block, you start to pull and strike. It becomes a response. Because once you grab, you have to strike. You can't grab, wait like a second and then strike, because you already lost the opportunity. The only thing you can do is when you're here, you have to strike. As soon as you strike, then you have to sink or move. You only have an instant. Now, what I did there was I changed my body by shifting. So that's all you have to actually do is, if the body moves, then you just recreate your bridge and the body changes. So once you're here, then we scoop. Now when we turn, like what Paul did, you turn. You time it with there. Now this goes like this. You see how what I did with this hand, right? So this is turn, and then kick, and then is your punch again. Now here, scoop and turn. Set it up, draw. Sliding step, punch, turn. Set up their leg, put the weight here, turn. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that closing is standard procedure. Chun Kyo punch is always, that format. All right, deep breathing. So, yeah, that just shows you, the fundamentals in the first form. If you can get it there, you'll get it in the other forms. If you learn Fuhak or Gungjikun, if you get it in those forms, it should filter back into the earlier forms. So a lot of people that progress through the levels end up having a better first form, not because they did the first form more, it's because the execution has evolved and the understanding changed. So that's something that, is just, pretty par for the course. So that you want to try 8th form, Fook Fu, because that has a lot of movement in it. All right. So that has the butterflies. It has all the punches, the elbows, and all. Okay, ready? Begin. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Turn, turn, close. Okay. All right, deep breathing. So in Hungar, we also have a lot of combinations that are pretty standard through all the forms, right? What are they? Can you think of a combination that's pretty consistent that we do regularly in other forms? You think of a combination? Think of a combination. A combination of movements that are, consistent as a grouping of movements that happen in other forms. That would be what would be, yeah. So, well, that's in the first form. Uppercut, remove, and punch, that's a common thing. More than that would be, how about your elbows and that, or this elbow. dropping palm, and that happens a lot in different forms, because those are some of the combinations that have been probably considered or deemed effective for those techniques. So trapping hand, dropping palm, those are categorized as that, a dropping movement. Then you have, your chun kill and punch is throughout all the forms. So those would be fundamentals to say those are the things you have to look at when you're doing your forms to see if those are consistent, because those have to be really, they represent part of the system. And then this punch that's like this, that happens a lot in more the advanced forms, right? When you do like a 10 images, we have it in footwork, we have it in Gung Kuen. So that side punch must be important, right? So those are the things that your body has to work with, so that it's consistently there in the body form and the structure. Because if in one form it's like this, then some form it's like this, then you're not distinguishing that it's the same movement. No, you haven't figured that out, or your body hasn't figured out. But it should know that right away. And if you were looking, if that movement had a name to it, it would be the same name. So like in Tai Chi, you do grasp the sparrow's tail. It's done about 7 or 8 times in the form. So there's a reason for that. There's brush knee. It's done a number of times, right? It happens. So those are important postures. In Hunga, this one and this one is an important. The cutting hand is very important. So those movements are movements that your body should really know, or you should understand, the technique and why it has to be a certain way. That way you can, work on that to get it to be consistent. Because consistency is accuracy. If there's no consistency, you can't be accurate because it's not focused. So that's something you have to understand. And the elbow, we have the back fist is very important. There's the oil quattro is always part of that. Because if you think about a high block, you're here. That's horizontal. When you go to quattro, it becomes vertical. So between the back fist and this, and this, that's a combination in a sense. It's reciprocating. They work in a sense that they're forward and backwards and forward. They're reversible. In application, that's how they work. When your hand is down, it goes up. When your hand is up, it goes down. It's, that's the only thing it can do. Yeah, so sinking the elbow, right? Then we have our elbows, the big and the pow, the horizontal elbow and the big and the look, right? The rolling elbow. So those elbows are important, and the thrusting elbow. So those are all pretty consistent throughout the form. So when we did the 10 elbow exercise, it was to define the motion so that you can change directions without the shoulder binding in between your movements. Because if the shoulder binds, then the water punch and the drunken fist doesn't work effectively because the shoulder's not releasing at the right time. So those all kind of support each other. So, that's in 10 images. So that's really so in the first form you have this, but yet it's actually a technique that's in the 10 images. And it doesn't show up to the 10 images, but when Fa Kuen was created, they actually extracted these movements from more advanced forms and put it together as a simple form. But we don't look at it as an advanced movement. So at the same time, what I just mentioned is you progress and you learn new forms and you evolve, allowing your body to catch up with the execution and skill level, then it all feeds back to the beginning. Because you'd say, boy, the first form, I must have spent 50 years on the first form to think of it like that. Actually, I learned footwork, Gung Kuen footwork, and I learned the forms backwards. I learned my Fa Kuen like in 2 days because I already had a foundation. But I've been teaching it forever. But I don't think about it because I'm teaching beginners, it's purely sequential. But because of the years doing the other forms, that becomes a no-brainer. You just know everything inside the first form because because I've evolved. So I bring these out so that you can, just experience my experience from doing it. But it's really all fundamentals. So if you think along that lines, then you have something to work with, because sometimes people don't know how to practice, other than sequence. But it's really getting your body to understand, what it has to go through to make the modifications to get your body to work the way you want it to. So that's really motor skill. And motor skill is coordination. So you develop tremendous coordination over time. You can't not develop coordination, because movements, when we're doing it, has to be this relationship that we're always talking about. The right and the left have to work together. The upper and the lower body has to work together. So upper and lower body, the relationship, when this goes like this, then this has to do something. So when something above happens, something below happens. So if I'm going like this, then my body has to do this. When I go like this, then this has to do that. When I step like this, the hand has to fold, and then it goes together. Because the elbows and the knees work together. The shoulders and the hips work together. The hands and the feet work together. That's the breakdown of relationship. How it has to tie together is unique to every individual posture and every individual technique. So there's a lot to deal with, a lot to learn. You can't just develop the coordination of one thing and have it work for the others completely, because it's called specificity of training. To get certain movements to work the way they're supposed to, you have to practice that specific movement and that motion, and then the body will start to identify with it. So that specificity training is really, that's part of how exercise trainers do it. You want to run long distance, you have to run long distance, train for that because of the physical endurance. If you're training for sprints and speed, then you have to do that, because the muscle requirement and energy requirement is different. So when we're doing forms, we have to do forms. You can't do 5-mile runs and improve your form. Improves your cardio, that's it. So anyways, okay, we'll bow. Ready? Hup. So